This episode is brought to you by Farmers Insurance.
Tensions simmer in the Pacific region as the U.S. conducts its largest ever military drills with the Philippines right after Beijing wraps up its own war games in nearby waters. An investigation by the Russian parliament claims to confirm the presence of U.S.-operated biological weapons labs in Ukraine.
It is another story entirely. Every single building has been torn apart.
RT reports from war-torn Artyomovsk as local officials claim Russian forces have taken control of around 75% of the city. And aircraft giant Boeing reportedly plans to return to full production levels of its controversial 737 MAX jets 4 years after deadly crashes claimed the lives of nearly 350 people. Coming to you live.
Track plans and our U.S.-based customer service team can help find one that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Some things just make you feel more alive than others. Like the rush of adrenaline from an SUV that roars from 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Jaguar delivers that thrill every day. The F-Pace, how Jaguar makes an SUV.
Will Turkey ratify Sweden's NATO membership? Stockholm says it can't fulfill all Ankara's demands. As the bloc's membership requires unanimous approval, what would make Turkey change its mind? And what does all of this mean for NATO's future? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. One of the many fallouts of Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been that previously neutral Nordic countries
Welcome to Thomas's Comparison Driving Lounge, starting here with the BMW 540i, 6-cylinder in the 5 Series, and we go a little roundabout, because one of the things they promised with this new generation is that it's more agile to drive, although it still looks this off-roadish, and I think indeed it works. So it feels actually quite sportier than it looks like. They also fixed the steering, so it's a little bit more progressive, but you've seen in the roundabout, I still do have to steer a lot, and the reason for that is that the off-road character of this vehicle still has, supposed to remain the same somehow. And in off-road vehicles, you have to steer a little bit more, that when you're going off-road, that something is changing on the surface, the steering wheel is not like turned totally, upside down, and maybe your fingers get ripped apart or something. So yes, it's a little bit more agile to drive, and the steering is a little bit more responsive, but it's not as responsive as in those, for example, Mercedes GLE, big Mercedes SUV. And if you're thinking about going for a standard big Mercedes SUV like a GLE or GLS, or this one here, the G-Class, I will also give you some hints throughout this driving review of what's really different. You here actually also not only see that the front windscreen is still really upright, and this is creating more wind noise than you would have with a flatter windscreen. The wind noise is a little bit less than in the previous generation. They have also improved the noise insulation. However, you can't just deny the building style of the car. You still hear that. It is somewhat windy today outside, but still we're driving 90 kilometers an hour, and it is more windy just from the noise than you would hear that in a respective SUV from the Mercedes lineup, definitely. However, from the road noise, also from the engine noise, you don't hear too much actually, especially when you're just letting it roll. The one thing that customers of this car appreciate the most is this command driving position, which is even more enhanced than in another normal street style SUV. You really sit, one step further ahead, and the hood is quite low. So considering this is a big car, you can still see very well where the hood is ending because you're really sitting above it. And that's for sure a funny feeling. So this is something very unique you hardly have in any other vehicle today on the road, that you still have this very rough, robust feeling and you think you are above all things. This definitely belongs to the concept of this vehicle. So here on the motorway, you can also then test the assistance system. This is also one of the major upgrades here. We have a blind spot monitor. Well, no one's going to overtake us now, but there will be a triangle in the left mirror. There's also the Distronic, the adaptive cruise control. You can set it here now with the directly at the steering wheel, not with a separate column. And then you can, for example, just have a normal cruise control, or also an adaptive one. You can choose that. In this case, I can also control the distance to the car in front of me, like this, and then I can basically just relax on throttle and brakes, and that's it. So we're starting here with some motorway to give you some features of those, and then I'll soon head on to some more agile roads. Very interesting, by the way. Now we're basically in the wind shadow of this truck in front of us, and suddenly it's super silent in here. And usually you don't hear that in normal cars. But since the wind noise due to the upright windshield is pretty much present, now it's basically very much blocked. That's a very interesting thing. Let's, as soon as the truck will be gone, let's see if we can experience something else then. Here, by the way, it's about 80 kilometers an hour. The car, considering it's that high, is still really stable. It's not tilting too much. Although we have a lot of spring weight, especially. Whoa! That trailer goes a little sideways there. Maybe want to do some action for us sliding the trailer out or something. So this is something they managed here very well, that the car is still somewhat stable. However, if you really steer it up and let it shake, it is still possible. You feel this rather soft off-road suspension, and then the car is going like this. This is somehow fun to drive, and again defining also the character of this vehicle. So let's also see if we can overtake it. We can choose different driving modes. For example, in the sport mode, the gears are turned up higher, and then we can accelerate out this car a little bit better. Consumption-wise, I'm not sure if you will be interested when you're driving this car, but already when I've just been cruising about 12 liters, even above that, and when I'm going to accelerate some more, probably this will go up even more. Mercedes claims that they have also improved the consumption, but usually that only happens on paper. Yes, the car is a little bit lighter than before in the previous generation. Chassis about 55% stiffer. So you feel the plus of agility, yes, but it will not really improve the consumption. So you have to live with a high consumption when you drive this car, for sure. There is also an eco mode, by the way, where the RPMs go just a little bit lower, for example. Throttle input is being reduced. And also, you can let the car sail. That is possible. You can try it, when you want to save some fuel, but in most cases it won't have such a big effect. Other than that, by the way, the total overview, not onto the front, to the sides, as this car is really those square dimensions, you can really very well see where this car is ending. So this would be one of the big luxury cars where I would say I could also live without 360-degree surround camera and stuff. This would be okay, as you can really see what's happening around the car. That's actually quite nice and good for this rather old building style. So, sport mode, and let me just slow down just a little bit. We go from, for example, from 40 kilometers an hour. Let's see how this acceleration here turns out, and also what the sound is giving us then here in the G500. So let those vehicles pass, and let's go. Plop. That is 100. So it's really hard to imagine that such a tank can still accelerate that hard. Also quite nice sound here from the V8, very sonorous, not too loud, because everything is very well insulated. And that's quite fun. So very sovereign, of course, with the V8, a lot of displacement there, and the all-wheel drive. That is what you get then from those rather classic big old engines. And now when the truck is gone in front of us with 90 kilometers an hour again, you hear the wind noise once more. One thing I was looking out to was also the suspension, because in the front you have an independent suspension, but in the rear you still have this rigid axle, which is rather set up for example, heavy load or the off-road driving and stuff. And this is the rather old construction, so to say. Of course, everything has been replaced, updated, and so on, and you do feel that. So, whereas in the old G-Class you had some less comfort suspension-wise, they improved it here now. So if you now think about getting one of those classic SUVs because you say you appreciate the comfort, from a great GLE air suspension or something, I think the riding comfort here is already quite good. And one of the reasons is also that the softness of the suspension is still set on this off-road mode. The thing I said earlier with the tilting, that you can shake up the car like this if you really want so, but only if you really force it. And that also gives you this still comfortable riding feel. So I was expecting it to be harsher, especially from the rear axle. I'll also update you when we get some more road input there, when we have, for example, a little bit more uneven road. That will be very interesting. And of course, from the off-road track that is coming up very soon as well, because that is also very interesting how the car performs there. By the way, in the corners, I also get a little bit help from the side bolsters of the seats. We know the system from Mercedes already. When you turn to the right or to the left, and your body's going to the right, for example, the right bolster is being stiffened, that you get held tight in the seat. It's a pretty cool system, especially also for the co-driver, because the co-driver cannot hold onto the steering wheel. So, then if you ask me again, unique driving feature of this car, for sure, the very upright command seating position, this off-road, rough feeling, I'm king of the road, nothing can harm me, even not pedestrians. Yeah, you got that. Then, of course, the pure power from the V8, already here in the G500, so more power than in the previous generation and less difference to the G63 if you just want to have a G500. Suspension-wise, big upgrade from the previous generation. It's now more comfortable, and you don't have to have a compromise there and say, you go with the rough off-roadish version and then you have less comfort. It's really comfortable also for long-term runs. But, and that's probably the biggest downside for driving this vehicle, especially on the motorway, it is very loud for Mercedes. You always have to think about very high level at Mercedes, high level of goodness in the noise insulation, so a low level of noise. And this is actually the biggest difference when you think about driving a GLE or a GLS at 100. You would not feel that at all. And that's just the building style. If you look at it from the outside and say, this very upright windscreen and this boxy style of the car, that is so cool. Then you have to live with the rather big noise here, the big wind noise in the interior when you have this motorway driving. That's probably the biggest downside of this car. But the interesting thing is that although it is still this rough off-roader, everything else Mercedes has basically taken care of, that you can still have this, there's still the same feeling of driving a 50-year-old car or looking at it. It's like a little bit like driving a vintage car from the feeling, but at the same time, all of the systems here, screens, automatic transmission, which works perfectly, very smooth as well, and all of the commands and driving it, then it's like a super modern car. So, and I think this combination is also something where a lot of people look out for, because maybe not everyone wants to drive a vintage car and have repairs all day and stuff, and no assist in the steering wheel. But this one is really a modern vintage car, a vintage car popped up. So style still vintage, but everything else technology-wise really changed. And I think driving again confirms that this is basically an all-new car on the one hand, and the reason they didn't say actually in front of the all the official sites and regulations that it's just an update, was just for the front hood, that they could actually keep that way, as I said earlier. So, and to close up this review with some fun part, let's drive it a little bit more around the corners, because again, this agile part is also one thing they've upgraded pretty much. So, feeling pretty safe, although it's high in the car, and it's actually a very cool cruiser. But again, I would not take it for very high speeds runs. Maybe just for relaxed trips in the countryside, and then have maybe a picnic there on the rear trunk or something like that. And probably that's also the reason why you often see this car here in the city, even although it does not really belong in the city. But at low speeds you don't hear anything from the wind noise. It's pretty interesting. Pretty nice also from the V8. You could always shift down here with the pedals. Have this roll, but it's not really exaggerated. So that's also one difference than G500, G63. G63 is just louder, and this one here with the G500, you say, this is totally enough for me. I don't have to say, hey everyone, listen up, I'm driving a G-Class. This is here rather just, hey look everyone, I'm driving a G-Class. So because looking here, small French city, driving here near Perpignan, really down in the south of France. I mean, if you drive with a G-Class through this small valley and there's someone that's looking like, what's going on here? So it does not really fit to this surrounding, but it's still somehow fun to drive through it. It's quite often the case that you have a different perspective when you look at it from the outside and when you're sitting inside the car. Because here again, I can, I'm almost sitting like I would be on the first floor in some of those buildings here and looking down to the street and then, what does this shop here offer? This is really, really funny stuff. Look at those, on the right side, those barriers. When you have the normal passenger car, it's really like this barrier is, almost above your head. And when I'm here, like this barrier is maybe just in front of my belly. That's really funny. Have you seen that, by the way? So the start-stop was activated as soon as I released it, because the car also has so much power. It really had a hop forward. All those start-stop systems, they are not always saving this much fuel. It's more like a system which saves fuel on paper. So sometimes I also just deactivate it. I mean, it's really the question if it really makes sense with this V8. So if we had one acceleration in there now, we're already at 14 liters on 100 kilometers consumption. So yeah, that's really something. And I have to say, than if you think about a GLE or a GLS. You can drive those definitely more efficient. So this is also, again, one more aspect where you still feel the difference then to those modern city SUVs and this here. Well, I do compare it to those Mercedes SUVs because there's hardly anything you can compare it outside then. There are no real competitors which still are in this rough off-roader segment from this rather old building style. You know, just maybe in the non-premium segment, if you think about the Mitsubishi Pajero maybe, where you can get 2 or 3 Pajeros for the price of this one here. Then again, even the Pajero is running out. And well, if you think Land Rover side, the Defender is way smaller and also totally different price region, so it's hard really to compare something to it. Toyota Land Cruiser is also cheaper, more off-roadish, so this really stands out for its own, and I think this is still one of the reasons why so many people go for it. Wow, really sovereign acceleration here. That is something which is definitely a lot of fun. However, I would have expected the V8 to be a little bit more fuel saving, because sometimes we test bigger engines which are lower in the consumption than the smaller engines, because you can run them at lower RPMs and stuff. But then again, the weight, you cannot deny the weight of this car, and you also cannot deny that the wind features which you literally hear is not really optimized for consumption and stuff. So let's turn here. See how I have to turn the steering wheel quite a lot. Again, still an off-road-ish steering, although it's very light and soft to steer. Now we're getting some bumps. Wow. Yeah, okay. That was quite rough, because the roads are actually quite good here. But when you get to some bumps, then you feel the stiffer rear axles, so that is also a difference then to some of those very modern air suspensions. Let's once more get to the sport mode. Here we go. Very smooth on this 9G automatic transmission, really a fan of it. Shifting back, RPMs turn up. One on the throttle. Whoa. That was the automatic brake, which is also standard equipment. It basically preheated my brake. But you can see when this upright cupboard is approaching you in the rear mirror, I think I've never experienced that on the French roads. Usually I just go with a very small Renault Clio and just race even faster than you would be allowed to. But here in this case I say, what the hell is approaching there from behind? Better get off the road, this crazy guy is running me down, something like that, you know. Let's see, I think I have to go left now. So I do have to force this vehicle in the corners just a little bit, also due to the steering. What about Katrina, co-driver today? How are you feeling when I'm driving this car a little bit faster? Is it still comfortable as a co-driver, or is it like, yeah? Because, you know, so you're fine with it also, you know, relaxed also when I'm driving faster. So she's relaxed also when I'm driving fast, and that's of course a good sign. To me as a driver, when I'm pushing the limits here now a little bit more, I think the steering could be more progressive. So if you not think about the off-road character of this car and think more in road driving, then it would be better if the steering would help me a little bit more with being more progressive, that I don't have to steer so much. Of course, tilting of the car, sometimes hopping from the suspension. So it is okay somewhat, and also definitely better than the previous generation, but I would not say that driving the G500 here would be super fun in agile driving corners. So sometimes, you know, just for a little bit you can certainly do that and you have enough power, but from the characteristics, I mean, the car is just too high for that basically. And of course I'm looking forward if that is different in the G63. Now to driving the G63 AMG, and just to show you that The rear view camera, by the way, is really cool. You can see it right there, great resolution, and you also have this fake drone view from above on the left hand side, even when someone is walking by. Pretty interesting, right, isn't it? So, and what I also have here with the AMG is that you have, for example, those performance mounts. Then you can see the Newton meters of torque or the kilowatts. I mean, you shouldn't watch look at it while driving anyway, but it's maybe a nice show-off then for the co-driver, for example. Well, you feel directly that the suspension is stiffer here. No wonder that they did that in the AMG version. That reduces the tilting to the left and the right. So, and that's also better than for a little sportier driving. And well, we have about 150 horsepower more. Let's see if we can realize that. The G500 was already fast for sure. What I really like is this steering wheel. It feels sportier, also behaves a little bit sportier. You can better grab it. Easier also to steer a little bit, so I would actually prefer this steering wheel. And you feel that the characteristic of the engine is also a little bit different. When I'm just in the comfort mode here, it feels a little bit like the other one, the G500, would be in the sport mode. That's pretty interesting. And well, what you can maybe also see on camera is that it's a little bit shakier, maybe because the suspension is stiffer, so when the road is uneven, you also feel it a little bit more. It's not that both vehicles would feel like total different vehicles, but again, the suspension, you can feel it. Also, we have here 22-inch rims instead of 20-inch rims, which we had with the G500, and that's also a difference. You know, when the wheels are bigger, it gets a little stiffer. Here, when you're going some right and left, very good control over the car. Again, for road driving, it would be cooler if you would have a little bit more progression in the steering, that you have to steer less. However, then when we later go off-road driving, then again, that's an advantage. So when you're going over some transverse bumps, especially at normal road speed, then you feel that the suspension is stiffer, first of all, and in general also, if you compare an AMG version of one of the other normal city street driving SUVs, that's then more comfortable with those than with this rather rough AMG version. So let me switch over to the GPS so that I can see where I'm actually driving. So here we go. And on the right side we can see then always the closed junction. On the left side we rather have the overview. And it's a little bit loud here from the suspension, from the vents in the rear. Sometimes I turn the vents in the rear down a little bit. So let's go to the sport mode here and give you some acceleration on that road here. So all ready, and let's go. That's 100. Ooh. So that is some difference. I mean, the felt difference is even bigger because of the sound this V8 is giving you. So the AMG sound here is definitely in another league than with the G500. And this 1.5 second that this car is... What the... Yeah, okay, that happened. So this 1.5 second that this car is actually faster than the other one, yeah, you do feel that. Although the other one was already quite fast. So I think everyone should be awake now, right? Okay, not too good for cameraman, I guess. So I can always hold onto the steering wheel and I know exactly when the acceleration is happening. So that's definitely an advantage. So now back to cruising a little bit, and you can go to the normal driving mode. By the way, with the G500, in the end, when I really tried to save fuel, I ended up with 12 liters on 100 kilometers, and It's not possible to go below that, and I think sometimes rather something 14 is even more realistic. Now, here for example at 100, you see you get more stability. If I would try to shake up the car like this, the G500 started to tilt then a little bit. This is less with this car, so less tilting, stiffer suspension. The question is then if you know, what you actually prefer. So if you want it a little bit sportier, less rolling, less tilting, then the G63 will help you. If you drive somewhere where you have a lot of bumps in the road, or they are rather damaged, then the G500 will help you a little bit more. Soon also while off-road driving, we'll check out the suspension and steering in there, how that will place off, because with this vehicle you always need to find a compromise between road and off-road driving, as it's still thought out to be also like a, still an off-road vehicle car. And I also know that some even go to the dunes or something, even with the G63. Well, the thing is that the approaching angle is of course different. So in the front and the rear, and because of the lower bumpers and stuff, the suspension itself is then stiffer too. So for off-road, definitely the G500. That's why we are soon in the off-road part will also concentrate on the G500. But here on the road with the G63, I feel better in those winding roads now. With the G500, I had the feeling that I had to fight the car a little bit because of the weight, the steering that I had to, work a little bit more with. Not necessarily because the steering is hard to control, but it feels like the car would be lagging behind a little bit then in the corners. And the 63 here is not really lagging behind in the corners. So I have to say, for driving on road, it feels definitely better, because it evens out the disadvantage of this car, that it's still very heavy, that for road driving it's so high and has also with the center of gravity and stuff, it starts rolling and tilting. So you even that out with the AMG version. So in a way this can also make sense. Sound wise, of course, if you like this rather growling AMG sound, that would be an advantage for you. Other than that, of course, if you want to save money, you go for the G500, but that shouldn't be playing any role if you go for the G63. So again, this dynamic road driving is not only more fun, not only sporty, but also somehow just more pleasant with this one here. So it's a funny thing that you can increase also the comfort with making a car stiffer. That's, at least that's how I feel. What's about co-driving? So you prefer the G500? Okay. So obviously for co-driver, the G500 is better because it's softer. Well, I mean, it's always some kind of personal preference, but I mean, AMG vehicles are definitely driver's cars, and probably you also now know why they're called driver's car, because they're better for the driver, not necessarily better for the co-driver, especially acceleration-wise. So always fun to use the shifting pedals here also. Click, click, click. So we go right, and we can push the sound a little bit further as well. That's also possible just when you are in the comfort mode and you want to do some overtaking maneuver. Just use the shifting pedal, shift back one gear, and then you have this growling sound again. You remember the pipes, 2 pipes on the right, 2 pipes on the left as well. Another good setup here for those winding turns. Really good to enjoy also with the camera here in the front. By the way, which one or which perspective do you prefer? We cannot always mount the camera like it is right now, the action camera, because not all cars have those panoramic roofs. Do you rather prefer this camera perspective here, where you look to the front, basically between me and co-driver, or do you rather like it here mounted to the side window? So if we have the possibility, I tend to put it in against the sunroof there, because you get this rather panoramic view to the front, which is pretty cool, just looking to the front as well, and you good feeling. On the other hand, the one that is mounted then next to my head on the left side, sometimes also on the racetrack, gives you a more natural point of view impression, that it would more feel like you are driving the car yourself. So I think this, as for me, this one is more beautiful, but the other one maybe is a little bit more realistic. What do you think? And leave me your comments about that. So once more into the sport mode, and the gears are turned up higher, more RPMs, also kept in a lower speed. Gears, 5th gear for example now at 100, where it would be a gear, or now 6th gear, 1 or 2 gears higher even in the normal comfort mode. Good stability here now, also in the corners with 70. Now it's really fun to drive the car also in a fast way. So if you like to go a little bit faster and have good roads available, and also want some sporty driving, although having a G-Class, and the G63 is for you. If you're more seeking for the visual part and not paying too much money, although it's already expensive, and just using it as a cruiser then, city and also countryside, and don't attack that vehicle that hard, then the G500 will be more suitable for you. So which one would you prefer after hearing those driving impressions? I really enjoy driving it here with the G60.
And they've since then been publishing troves of documents outlining in great detail the complex work that these laboratories were doing, who was funding them and who was involved.
That's volume at 14. Let's get some volume.
Alright, so setting off here in the 2023 Integra. So the first thing you notice about this, well, you have a really nice slow soundtrack, which is very apparent and makes itself known with some fairly loud sounds. Some other electric vehicles are quieter. But this is one of the louder ones, honestly, that I've experienced, and it's a really cool sound. I'm the kind of person with the opinion that if, it's going to have silence, as far as the actual real motors are concerned for the most part, I would rather have fake noise than no noise at all. Now, thankfully, you can change that. There's an individual mode. You can have it quiet. You can have this balance setting, or there's a dynamic mode, which makes it even louder. You can have up to a 78 decibel sound out of this thing whenever, you're going full tilt. And so I think it's cool they give you that adjustability and customization there. It would be cool if you could pick different sounds. They've just conducted one sound basically here they think is appropriate for the vibe of the e-tron GT. And so anyway, I think that's a pretty cool touch. Other things here. I also love how you have a nice, very low dashboard. You have excellent visibility here, looking forward at least. A-pillars get out of the way nicely. You do have a very narrow view out of the rear though. That's one thing that's not the best, but of course you have all the tech and stuff to help you maneuver this thing, 360 cameras, all of that, but nice and easy, especially here in the comfort mode. Otherwise though, aside from that generated sound, it's nice and quiet and refined in here. I've already been driving this vehicle for a week, so I took it up on the highway and did all kinds of, driving in it, and we're just gonna do our normal rolling acceleration here and see how it does. Here we go. Whoa! Still super fast. I can actually feel the blood rushing to the back of my head there. I mean, it is still super fast and powerful. Woo, yeah, so this thing, and there's that extra sound, and oh man, yeah, it's a good thing you have these very beefy brakes, because you're going to need them in this thing. 2.9 seconds 0 to 60 is what Car and Driver actually clocked. I think Audi claims a 3.3 seconds 0 to 60 very modestly. It's definitely, sub 3 seconds. So I mean, we're talking, supercar, hypercar kinds of numbers here out of this thing. It is insanely fast, and it is a rush. And that was only a little bit less power than you actually can get with the boost mode. Boost mode gives you 637 horsepower and then 612 pound-feet of torque regardless. But whenever you're not in the boost mode, so what we just experienced was 590 horsepower, which, these days with insane, performance numbers, 590 horsepower doesn't sound like an astronomical amount to give you, a sub 3 seconds there to 60 time. It's just the way it deploys that instantly and immediately, and the way it puts the power down really, really well is what's really the most impressive. And I do have to say, though, that it's nice and dry here today, but most of the week it was raining. And whenever you encounter wet roads, good luck, because it actually struggled to put the power down a little bit with just how ferocious it deploys that power. And it just makes actually a little bit more sketchy than I was expecting, honestly, for an all-wheel drive electric vehicle. The traction control is struggling to put that power down, especially when it was a little bit cooler. Now, it was always over 40 degrees, so it's within the operating temperatures of this tire, which is the Goodyear Eagle F1 tire, but it's a special electric drive version of that tire, which I think gives you a little less grip probably and a little less rolling resistance and better efficiency as a result. But anyway, so even this road, though, is pretty rough, generates a lot of road noise usually. You can't really hear too much here. But anyway, we're coming to some corners here I always take, and let's see how the handling is here in the e-tron RS GT. So they're over 5,100 pounds, but you have four-wheel steering as an option, which this one does have, and you also have lots of grip. These tires are 295 wide in the front, 305s in the rear, and just, obviously having all the batteries in the floor there gives you a very low center of gravity, and that four-wheel steer just, makes it so, this thing handles flawlessly. Once again, it is very, very impressive here in the dry. Now, I will say, again, I was driving this vehicle, not, super spiritedly, but I was, playing around with it a little bit, again, with most of this week being rainy, wet roads that are on the cooler side. These tires seem like they don't love the rain. Again, I don't know if it's the special blend for this electric version of the Eagle F1s or what, but I didn't fully trust this thing in the rain. Exiting corners, again, that traction control light was coming on a bunch. It was, again, struggling to put power down, and I didn't feel like it was super planted whenever it was in the wet. Here in the dry, though, I have no confidence issues with it at all. But honestly, on most ordinary back roads, this isn't going to have so much performance as far as handling goes that, going around this corner, it just felt like it wasn't even breaking a sweat. You're going to have to really be pushing this thing a lot more to try and find the limits here in the dry, at least. It is very, very capable. It's also crazy, the power delivery of this thing, not only whenever you're flooring it, but also just whenever you're cruising around. You just lean on the gas and you're instantly up 10 miles per hour. It is so impressive the way that it honestly feels, not next generation is a very thrown around overused word, but this truly feels like an evolution in automotive performance in the way that it instantly leaps by tens in the speed. It's just 30, 40, 50, there you go. And it's and that wasn't even flooring it, that's just leaning into it, and it just does that. And so it just gives you such fun point and shoot capabilities basically with this thing, whether you're just trying to quickly accelerate, turning through an intersection, or whether you're trying to merge onto the highway or make a quick pass on the highway. It's just, like any other electric vehicle where they're very immediate with their power, but this one is just so fast that it is really I want to be there now, here I am, and I'm there. It's just so quick with the way it does all that, and it's just, this is one of these vehicles that really feels like you have superpowers when you're in this thing. Obviously this is Tony Stark's car, if you follow the Marvel movies, and it really does feel like it's suitable for a superhero, because you feel like you have superhuman capabilities, honestly, with this thing, whenever you're just driving around, because it just does whatever you ask it. And I think we are ready. Here we go. Woo! Okay, so it didn't tell me that it was going into a boost mode, but it did say that the power meter was over the normal range there. So I think we did a boost mode. I don't know, but regardless, it's still insanely fast either way. No matter what you do, how you cut it, it's very, very impressive, and certainly will be a crowd pleaser. Anyone you take for a ride, this thing, blown away by how fast this thing is. Got some more corners here. I'll just try seeing if I can get that back end to play around on me again. Nope, in the drive just rips and goes, but man, it really leaps out of these corners. It's impressive. This thing really has very, very impressive capabilities. Man, oh man, I am just it's addictive though, because it's like I just want to go faster and faster, and I gotta like slow myself down and be like, nope, I'm on public roads, I can't push this as much as I want to. I would love to take one of these around a track, because it's just, I mean, it's way more capability here than I can, you know, use even remotely responsibly. It's just like, it just cuts this up, like, I feel like the car's yawning while we're doing this. It's just like, what else do you got for me? It's impressive. I mean, these are corners that I take around. I've taken hundreds of cars around those corners, and it's been a great judge of, you know, how I can push them and, you know, the characteristics they exhibit. This is just like, yeah, like, what else? Like, boring. Like, it's crazy. Also, while we calm down here and just kind of get back to some relaxed cruising, some other important things here, this being an electric vehicle, of course, let's talk about the battery and all that. So it's an 85 kilowatt hour battery, a little bit on the smaller side these days, but still does 232 miles of range is what it's rated at. The good news is it means the battery can recharge pretty quickly, and since this is on an 800 volt architecture, just like the Taycan, it means you have 270 kilowatt fast charging capability, which is still some of the fastest out there these days. So I mean, very quick recharge times, and you know, some people have also seen, you know, a lot better efficiency than what you're getting here. So, you know, even though they claim 232, I've seen some people do, you know, over 240 miles of range. Now that still is a lot less than most of its other competitors though, so if range is important to you, they had a real transmission in a gas car, but it's still, you know, allows you to kind of just like run these, you know, very rolling hills here we have, and I can go ahead and crank it up, and it'll slow me down a little bit so that I'm not...
Message from General Pepper.
Would you kindly do a barrel roll? Star Fox 64 from 1997. The anthropomorphized animals are back flying multi-billion-dollar spaceships. Do you need a license for that in the animal kingdom, or do they just throw you the keys? Falco! It's time to rock some enemies like Amadeus in the ultra-popular sequel to the original Star Fox. This remains one of the most memorable, playable games on the Nintendo 64.
Help me!
No, I refuse to help a talking frog. Oh, damn it, I shot the enemy by mistake. I was aiming for Slippy. I'll get him later. So, what can I say about Star Fox 64 that hasn't been said before? How about it's groove-tacular? And while this game was released in 1997, it plays like it's brand new. Unlike the original Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, Star Fox 64 is smooth, responsive, fast-paced, and when this game gets a moderate facelift on the Nintendo 3DS, it'll feel brand new.
I can't believe I lost to this.
Whoa, such profanity in a Nintendo game. I'll have to wash my ears out with soap.
A bomb has been planted at the base.
Geez, can anyone take care of it?
Most of the gameplay, which is rock solid by the way, takes place with the traditional camera behind the R-Wing perspective set forth in the original Star Fox. But occasionally you'll fight in these levels which are more wide open in an all-range mode, which can be pretty tricky. As you've seen, I can lock onto enemies by holding down the fire button, or I can just rapid-fire machine gun them. Depending on how well you do or what objectives you complete, the game determines your path through Star Fox 64. Basically, you're being scored on how many enemies you destroy. It's not a terribly difficult game to beat. In fact, it's easier than the original one. But if you'd like to ace all of the levels and go for the top score, then it's challenging. And this enemy is totally inspired by V'ger from the original Star Trek movie.
What's he saying?
He's speaking in jive, Fox. You just don't know it. Oh, wait, here's an opportunity to finally get rid of Slippy. I'm going to take advantage of this.
You are an enemy. Yippee! You did it!
Huh? What?
The view is clear. Destroy.
Hey, Slippy, why don't you handle this?
Let me handle this.
Slippy!
We'll miss you! Wait, oh, he borrowed 20 bucks from me. It's in his pocket. Now we better go save him. Oh, it's the tank level. I really prefer the R-Wing.
Don't be dead, Flip.
We all know that's false optimism. While I'm not a huge fan of the N64 controller, it feels like I'm playing this game in reverse after all these years. It's been a while. I do like the N64 game to support the Rumble Pack, and originally it even came packaged with one. So the game shakes and vibrates. In addition to the single-player campaign, Star Fox 64 is quite popular for its multiplayer, where we could blow our friends up in the all-range mode back in the day. I'm looking forward to this game on the 3DS. I think it'll be pretty cool with the 3D perspective. Obviously, I'm recording this prior to the release, and I do know they're bringing back the multiplayer. I just wish there was a way I could plug my PlayStation 2 DualShock controller into the N64.
Really starting to tick me off.
Wait, why is he back? I thought we left him in the desert planet. Didn't we? No?
Satellite course.
Should I do a barrel roll? Throughout the years, there have been 64.
Do a barrel roll.
Recognize the admission of Finland and Sweden to NATO, because we all know that, looking from an historical perspective, NATO members have brought their national issues to the...
Maybe the Gallant's more successful competitors should finally start looking over their shoulders. You'd better believe it. And what they'll see approaching rapidly in their rearview mirrors is a Mitsubishi Galant that's larger, more powerful, and completely redesigned with the U.S. market in mind. The 1999 Gallant's elegant new appearance serves a twofold purpose that brings it more into line with the upscale Diamante, and at the same time separates it from its more homogeneous competitors. Although retaining the same 103.7-inch wheelbase, the new Galant is now longer, wider, and taller than last year's model. Just enough so to move it from the compact and mid-size class like its major competitors. But the Galant has been training hard, and it's now beefed up, finally available with a 3-liter single overhead cam 24-valve V6 engine. Borrowed from the Montero Sport SUV, it pumps out 195 horsepower and 205 pound-feet of torque. And while it doesn't quite match the Accord's 200 horsepower, its extra 10 pound-feet of torque is available at a lower RPM. The Galant standard scrappy little 2.4-liter single-cam 16-valve 4-cylinder with 145 horsepower and 155 pound-feet of torque outdigs not only the Camry and Accord, but the 626 and Altima as well. Think of it as the Jack Russell Terrier of 4-cylinders. Now, we took a V6 Galant equipped for California emissions to the track, where we ran to 60 in 9.3 seconds and on past the quarter mile in 17 seconds to the tune of 84 miles per hour. Not overwhelming, but certainly good enough to be very competitive. Through the slalom, turn-ins were sharp, but the overall feel of the steering is somewhat vague. Understeer was obvious, as was body roll, but neither was excessive. The McPherson strut suspension with a front stabilizer bar is tuned specifically for the U.S. market. The Gallant's rear multi-link setup has been improved with a more rigid crossmember and stronger upper and lower control arms. All models, save the entry-level DE, also carry a rear stabilizer bar. A slightly tauter Galant GTZ Sports model is also available. The 4-wheel disc ABS-equipped brakes on our tester did an excellent job of bringing us down from 60 in an average 124 feet. Feedback through the pedal was enough to let us know the system was working without being obnoxious. The moderately soft front suspension setup, however, did allow more nosedive than we'd prefer. That same tuning paid off big dividends, however, out on the highway, as expansion joints and other minor irregularities were rendered non-existent. Unfortunately, non-existent also applies to a manual transmission. A 5-speed manual will be along later in the year on 4-cylinder models, but no plans are in the works for one with the V6. The 4-speed auto has been upgraded and is well mated to either 4- or 6-cylinder engines, delivering nearly seamless shifts. The Gallant's roomier interior, total volume is up 2.2 cubic feet, was designed in the U.S. with American taste and desires a top priority. Our LS Tester, Gallant's full luxury model, featured comfortable leather-faced buckets. The driver gets 8-way power adjustments too. The tilt steering wheel is standard and faces an attractive analog gauge cluster. To the right, the controls for the AM/FM cassette and trunk-mounted CD changer are now at the top of the center stack. They're within easy reach and well marked. Same can be said for the climate controls just below. In the rear, head, leg, and hip room are up slightly. Shoulder room is down, which puts the Gallant mid-pack with the other U.S.-built Japanese badge competitors. There is no split seat, but the center of the seat back on the right does pop open to reveal a small pass-through to the trunk, which now pulls the Gallant abreast of its competitors with 14 cubic feet, up from 12.5 last year. Base price and the as-tested price for our 1999 Mitsubishi Galant LS Tester are one and the same at $24,670. But a well-equipped entry-level DE model can be had for a mere $17,410. The GTZ goes for $24,470. With 2 4-cylinder and 3 6-cylinder models to choose from, the 1999 Mitsubishi Galant is a serious contender as the ideal everyman's car. And like us, you probably won't mind when your neighbors remark how nice your new Diamante looks sitting in your driveway.
And I hope you'll join us next week for more Motor Week. We'll drive the all-new and very different Mercury Cougar and try out a more sure-footed Chevy Corvette. Craig Singhas tries the vintage racing circuit, while Pat Goss gives us the straight dope on gasoline. Plus, we'll have another long-term road test update and all the latest motor news. I'm John Davis. We'll see you then.
Brought to you by Castrol Super Clean All-Wheel Cleaner. The cleaner that releases brake dust and road grime from all types of wheels on contact, no matter what age your car. Castrol Super Clean All-Wheel Cleaner. And by Michelin, makers of the Zero Pressure Michelin. Designed to let you drive up to 50 miles at 55 miles per hour without air pressure. Just what you expect from Michelin. To order a video cassette of this program, call 1-800-422-0064.
And also, Russia took this issue, by the way, to the UN last October, seeking a
platform of the alliance whenever any particular topic came to the agenda.
Let's to thank one of our sponsors, Farmers Insurance.
I've seen this movie before.
You have?
Sure. This is the part where all is lost and the hero searches for hope. Then a mysterious figure reminds her that she has the Farmer's Home Policy Perk guaranteed replacement cost, and that her home will be rebuilt regardless of her limits or if the cost of materials has gone up.
That's really something.
Get a whole lot of something with Farmer's Policy Perks. Wait, I didn't ruin the ending, did I?
Yeah, you did.
We are farmers, bum 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 bum.